As strange as it might seem, there appears to be considerable confusion about what charity is. It appears a good number of people confuse charity with freeloading. Because of the confusion, many who ought to be accepting charity are refusing it, while many who ought not receive it pretend they are recipients of charity. Charity does not include free riders, nor does charity produce impoverishment. There is a distinction between charity and freeloading. Christians need to understand. Charity is based on love and consists of an act of faith. Freeloaders tap into these sentiments, but free riding is a corruption of charity. Freeloading defines someone who has no faith. Without faith, we fear others, in the sense other people represents a level of risk to us. If we fear others, we do not trust them, and so ultimately what we do is seek an advantage over them. Without this fear and seeing other people as a source of risk, power disparities would not exist. Fear causes division, and division results in some people having more power than others. Without these power disparities, freeloading could not exist. People are charitable because they wish to be. In charitable giving there is no expectation of a reward. This is why charity is done, when feasible, in secret. Many people do not like to accept charity because they associate it with freeloading. This perspective is due, in no small part, by the fact that charity, especially when done in secret, is not a loan. To treat a charitable gift as a loan is to insult the giver. However, it is not the giving that separates charity from freeloading. It is the response of the recipient. The client of a charity and the freeloader both get something for nothing, but one finds a way around the situation, and one takes advantage of it. Freeloaders are individuals, but the grift is usually based on their intersectional status. The grift is usually aided and abetted by the state. The freeloader is a group member who has a legally defined entitlement. The benefit is often paid for by people who would not provide the benefit if they had a choice. The homeless are homeless only when they do not have a home in a legal sense. Homelessness is not an issue or category of person, unless they are eligible for public assistance, or someone thinks they ought to be. The freeloader rarely depends on the largesse of individuals. They rely on agencies of the state. However, there is a deeper distinction between the freeloader and a recipient of charity than how they get help. Both groups receive benefits, and the source of the benefits does not need to be paid back, in either case. The difference is the free rider ensures he cannot pay the benefit back. The recipient of charity is not a free rider and cannot be prevented from returning the favor, often with interest. Therefore, it is the recipient that decides if he is being given charity, or if he is a free rider. The recipient decides this by reconciling his account or by staying in arrears. Charity, when done right, is a form of paying it forward. The charity received is not repaid but passed on to someone else in need. The freeloader takes and never gets to where he in turn can be charitable. The charity case borrows help. Charity is retuned with interest to others who are in need. The freeloader consumes help. That is the difference, but the difference is substantial. Differentiating them is only the first step. The question is, how do we encourage charity but prevent free riding? The problem is, the charitable person is often unequally yoked with unbelievers. The charitable person is subjected to the emotional blackmail of freeloaders. When we see someone in need, we do not know if the need is self-inflicted or not. We do not know if once helped the person will pour out his gratitude on many others or consume what he has been given and end up worse off than before. The charitable person just sees the need and feels compelled to help regardless of the outcome. It is this emotional blackmail inflicted upon the charitable that manifests as battered housewife syndrome and Stockholm syndrome. So, getting involved with a freeloader can be dangerous as they are manipulative. Giving charity to drug addicts often does little more than deepen his or her addiction and level of dependency, not to mention making drug dealers wealthy. We have already considered the downside of engaging in a relationship with a freeloader. The manipulative side of freeloading is why charity is usually best done through the church. It has or ought to have guidelines in place to ensure that the help given goes to the right place. But even the church is not up to overcoming the manipulation of liberal free riders. Christian values have been rendered irrelevant when governments have taken charge of most charitable activities. Perhaps it is because Christians were taught to think of governments as benevolent. Our ancestors might have worried about a neighboring village raiding them and stealing women and cattle. They may have worried about warlords taking over their ancestral lands and forcing them to pay tribute. There may even have been some concern that not everyone was contributing to the common defense of the village or larger community. So, it might have seemed reasonable to imbue a central authority with the tools it needed to impose a kind of equality on us all. A few suffered for the good of all. Perhaps the myth of the social contract conveys a modicum of truth. At some point our ancestors may have ceded their personal authority to greater social control, to lower the costs of free riding. But if our neighbor took advantage of our good nature and circumstances to get a larger share of benefits and a lower share of the work, why would governments not be subject to the same temptation to free ride? This problem reflects the paradox of who watches the watcher. We gave governments the power to ensure everyone carried their share of the common load. But who ensures the state carries its share of the commonwealth? Why would the state not take advantage of their position and power to favor themselves? Why would people and governments not preference their favorite groups and individuals and promote an agenda that reflect their best interests over the broader interests of the nation? We are told to be charitable, but this is suicidal when dealing with parasites. Which is why we ought not be yoked unequally with non-believers. We cannot act as a Christian and be associated with free riders. Freeloaders will always take advantage of the generosity of we who are charitable. They will always emotionally blackmail the charitable because this is what they do. If we understand the difference between charity and freeloading, we ought to be able to understand the difference between Christian and legalists. Freeloading is not illegal and so is permitted. Charity does not permit freeloading, as we are supposed to help others, not add to their harm. Christianity is designed to not just permit but to encourage charity, but it does this from within a community of faith. The church is the safe space of the charitable. We can be charitable because those in a church trust one another. The church certifies the believer as being sound in their moral virtue. But we cannot negotiate contracts and agreements with free riders. The question is then, what do we, who are supposed to live charitably, do when surrounded by freeloaders? The answer was to unsurround oneself. The answer is to separate, to come out from among them. The tribe was a charitable institution but was made redundant by the evil around them. We have been given the church, which is a more modern form of the charitable community. To look at the church solely as a charitable organization is to locate it within Babylon. If we permit the church to remain an institution, it will be regulated out of existence, and our charity will be co-opted to further the devil's agenda. Truth is the truth. The truth is not open to debate nor decided by the popular vote. It is right to be charitable, it is wrong to freeload. There is no question here and nothing to debate. Nor do we need to hold an inquiry to find out which is which. Charity does not include free riders or pathways to oppression. This is why Christians need the church and why the church must separate from the world. It is not an institution but a standalone community and indeed a nation. We are a people set apart because we are a charity and we are not to be emotionally blackmailed by freeloaders.